Commander Vex Talon watched the security feeds with the rigid posture that had become his trademark over 3 decades of military service. His 4 obsidian eyes, evolved for the harsh light conditions of the QR homeworld, blinked in their characteristic asynchronous pattern as they swept across the monitoring stations of Outpost DRL-9. The fortress had been his command for 6 stellar cycles, carved into the dead volcano that dominated the barren landscape of Teres, a moon that served as the capital of QR Imperium operations across the Orion Arm. Status report. He demanded, his voice carrying the guttural undertones of his species. Lieutenant Zarn approached datapad in hand, his slender frame casting a narrow shadow across the polished obsidian floor of the command center. Unlike the commander, Zarn possessed only 2 eyes, a genetic anomaly that had initially threatened his advancement through the ranks until his tactical brilliance had proven impossible to ignore. All systems nominal, Commander Zarn reported. Energy shields at 97% efficiency. The recent meteor shower caused minimal strain. Titanium alloy reinforcements showing no signs of structural fatigue. The dormant lava flows beneath the fortress remain stable, and we've harnessed an additional 2% energy from the thermal differentials. Vex Talon grunted in acknowledgement. And the human prisoners from the Riel 7 campaign. A flicker of something, perhaps discomfort, passed across Zarn's features before his military discipline reasserted itself. The 13 survivors have been processed according to protocol. Intelligence extraction complete. They've been transferred to labor facilities on Meridian. Good. Vex Talon turned to the strategic display dominating the center of the command deck. It showed the current positions of QR forces across 3 star systems, all former human territories conquered in their relentless expansion over the past 3 solar cycles. The mining rights to Riel belong to the Imperium now. The humans were foolish to resist. They fought admirably, Zarn said carefully. Vex Talon's secondary eyelids snapped shut in annoyance. Admirably, they were obliterated. 15,000 human soldiers against our mechanized divisions. Their orbital defenses fell within hours. Yet they held the ground battle for 19 days, Zarn pointed out. Our casualty reports. Enough, Vex Talon cut him off. Recite the 3rd precept of the Imperium. Zarn straightened immediately, his voice taking on the mechanical quality of rote memorization. Victory is inevitable. Defeat is merely delayed success. Precisely. The humans merely delayed their defeat. As they always will. Vex Talon returned his attention to the security feeds, his mind briefly flickering to memories he preferred to suppress, campaigns where human ingenuity had cost him soldiers' resources pride. He would not admit these thoughts aloud, but the humans possessed a creativity in warfare that the more methodical QR forces sometimes struggled to counter. Around them, the command center hummed with activity. Junior officers monitored communications weapons systems, environmental controls, and the 1,000 other functions necessary to maintain a fortress housing 12,000 military personnel and nearly twice as many support staff. DRL-9 was considered invulnerable, its location secret, its defenses impenetrable, its security protocols unbreachable. Vex Talon allowed himself a moment of pride. Under his command, DRL-9 had become the crown jewel of QR military installations. From here, they coordinated strikes across human space. Within these walls, their scientists developed the next generation of weapons that would finally break human resistance once and for all. A soft alarm chimed from a security station, drawing his attention. "What is it?" he demanded. The security officer, a 4-eyed veteran named Krex, frowned at his console. "Momentary anomaly at Gate 7, Commander. Resolving now." Vex Talon moved to stand behind the officer, watching as the feed from Gate 7 flickered and then stabilized. The massive entry point to the fortress appeared normal, 2 guard towers flanking a particle barrier designed to atomize any unauthorized entity that attempted to pass. "Run diagnostics," he ordered. "Already initiated, sir," Krex responded. "Preliminary results show—" "Wait, that can't be right." Explain, Vex Talon demanded. The system shows an authorized entry, but I don't see any personnel or vehicles passing through the... The words died in the officer's throat as the camera feed suddenly showed a figure walking calmly through Gate 7. A human, dressed in standard Earth Alliance fatigues, strolled through the supposedly impenetrable barrier as if it were nothing more than a light morning mist. Vex Talon stared in disbelief. The guards in the towers had lowered their weapons. The automated defense turrets remained dormant. The human medium-height, unremarkable features, light brown hair cut in military fashion, continued walking toward the main entrance, as if out for a casual exercise session. "Impossible!" Vex Talon whispered, then roared, "Impossible!" His fist slammed down on the console, causing the image to jump. "Full lockdown. All personnel to battle stations. Lethal force authorized against the human intruder." Alarms blared throughout the facility. Red emergency lights bathed the command center. Lieutenant Zarn was already pulling up technical readouts, his fingers flying across holographic interfaces. "Sir, perimeter systems show no breach. No mind control signatures detected. No cloaked vessels in the vicinity. The human simply walked in." "That's not possible," Vex Talon insisted. "Check the biometric scanners." Zarn's expression shifted from concentration to confusion. Biometric scanners recognized the intruder as authorized. "Authorized how?" "Unknown, sir, but the system granted Gamma-level clearance." Vex Talon's multiple hearts accelerated their rhythm. Gamma-level clearance was reserved for senior scientific staff and high-ranking officers. It allowed access to nearly 80% of the facility, including sensitive research areas. "Track the intruder. Deploy security teams to intercept." "Already done, sir. First response team approaching in Sector 12B." The security feed shifted to show a corridor where 6 heavily armed QR soldiers had formed a blockade. The human turned a corner and faced them, still walking, at the same unhurried pace. "Halt!" the team leader shouted, his translator converting the QR language to standard human English. "Identify yourself or be terminated." The human stopped. For a moment, Vex Talon thought they might surrender. Then the intruder smiled a small, almost apologetic gesture and said something too quiet for the corridor microphones to pick up. All 6 soldiers lowered their weapons simultaneously. "What are they doing?" Vex Talon demanded. "Override their comms." Zarn attempted to establish communication but shook his head. "No response, Commander." On the screen, the human walked through the line of soldiers who parted to create a path. As the intruder passed, each soldier collapsed to the floor, apparently unconscious, but showing no signs of physical trauma. "Activate neurotoxin defense in that sector," Vex Talon ordered, his voice cold. "Full concentration." Zarn hesitated only briefly before entering the command. On the screen, vents opened in the corridor ceiling, releasing a nearly invisible green mist. The neurotoxin was designed specifically to attack human neural pathways, causing paralysis within seconds and death within minutes. The human walked through the thickening cloud without breaking stride. "Impossible," Zarn whispered. "The toxin concentration is lethal to any human physiology." Vex Talon's mind raced. In 300 years of conflict with humans, nothing like this had ever been documented. "Where is the intruder heading?" Zarn consulted the tracking system. "Based on current trajectory, the vault." The vault. The most secure location in DRL-9, housing the Imperium's most advanced prototype weapons and research. It required triple biometric authentication and Gamma-level clearance protected by 7 separate security systems, each supposedly unbreakable. "Lock it down. Redirect all available security to the vault entrance." Vex Talon watched in mounting horror as the human navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the fortress, bypassing or neutralizing every defense. Security personnel fell unconscious in the intruder's wake. Automated systems recognized the human as authorized. Locked doors opened. Restricted elevators operated. The vault entrance. Zarn announced, switching the main view screen to show the massive circular door that protected the Imperium's most valuable assets. A dozen elite guards stood ready, flanked by combat mechs. The human approached, still unhurried, still wearing that same mild expression. "Halt and surrender." The security chief commanded, his weapon trained on the intruder's chest. The human stopped and appeared to consider the request. Then, incredibly, they approached the biometric scanner beside the vault door. The scanner required retinal voice and genetic identification from an authorized user. The human placed their hand on the genetic reader, leaned toward the retinal scanner, and spoke a phrase. The security log registered, "Authentication complete. User classified. Access granted." The massive door began to slide open. "Override!" Vex Talon shouted. "Emergency protocol zenith!" Override rejected, the system responded in its cool synthetic voice. "Superior authorization detected." The guards opened fire. Energy weapons discharged, filling the corridor with deadly plasma bursts. The human should have been vaporized instantly. Instead, the energy seemed to bend around the intruder, striking the walls, the floor, the ceiling, everything except their target. The combat mechs advanced only to freeze mid-step and collapse into heaps of disabled metal. The human walked into the vault. Antimatter chamber lockdown. Vex Talon ordered, sweat beading on his gray-green skin. "Cut all communications. Isolate that section completely." "Confirmed," Zarn replied, his voice tight with stress. "Section isolated. But, Commander, we've lost all internal feeds from the vault." For 20 excruciating minutes, they waited blind to what was happening within the Imperium's most secure facility. Vex Talon dispatched additional forces, ordered the revival of unconscious personnel, demanded updates from every system still functioning. Finally, Zarn reported, "Movement detected. The vault door is reopening." The feed reappeared on the main screen. The human emerged now, carrying a small satchel that hadn't been there before. Behind them, visible through the open vault door, Vex Talon could see the prone forms of the scientific staff who worked within. Some were moving weakly. Others lay still. "What did they take?" he demanded. Zarn consulted another officer who was frantically checking inventory. "The quantum destabilizer prototype is missing, and several other advanced weapon systems we've been developing." The quantum destabilizer. Still experimental, designed to unravel the atomic structure of matter itself. In theory, capable of destroying an entire planet, but the power requirements had proved impossible to solve. The device was useless without a massive energy source. "Seal all exits," Vex Talon ordered. "Release nerve gas throughout all sectors. Then initiate facility evacuation." Sir, Zarn questioned, his eyes widening. "Our own personnel." "We'll die if we don't stop this intruder," Vex Talon finished. "Do it, now." The command was given. Throughout DRL-9, deadly nerve agents flooded every corridor, every chamber, every ventilation shaft. The human continued walking, passing through the thickest concentrations without apparent effect. Those QR personnel who hadn't reached protective gear or evacuation pods collapsed. As Vex Talon and his command staff donned emergency respirators, he watched the intruder navigate toward an exit point, that same mild expression, now recognizable as amusement, never leaving their face. "Who are you?" Vex Talon whispered, though the human couldn't possibly hear him. "What are you?" The intruder reached an exterior door, one that would normally never open without complex authorization. It slid apart at their approach. Beyond lay the barren volcanic landscape of Terrace, its atmosphere unsuitable for human life, without protective gear. The human stepped outside, satchel in hand, and began walking across the rocky terrain. No spaceport, no vehicle, no backup that they could detect. "Track them," Vex Talon ordered. "Launch drones." But even as he gave the command, the human's form seemed to shimmer and then vanish entirely, as if they had never existed. Zarn's voice was barely audible. "They're gone, Commander. All traces gone." The aftermath was chaos. 73 dead from the nerve agent. Hundreds more injured. Incalculable damage to the Imperium's most advanced research. And that face, that human face with its expression of mild amusement, burned into Vex Talon's memory. 3 days later, Commander Vex Talon stood before the Grand Admiral Kurvash and Supreme Counselor Draz Kol in the Imperial Chamber on Terrace Prime. His body ached from the rigorous decontamination procedures he had undergone. His mind ached from the endless questioning the same details demanded again and again. Recite the sequence of events once more. Grand Admiral Kurvash instructed his massive form, dwarfing the ornate chair he occupied. Unlike most, QR Kurvash had undergone extensive genetic modifications resulting in 6 eyes, rather than the standard 4, a sign of his elevated status and access to restricted technologies. Vex Talon forced himself to remain composed as he repeated the account for what seemed like the 100th time. The impossible breach, the weapons theft, the intruder's immunity to toxins, to energy weapons, to every security protocol the Imperium had developed over centuries. And you believe this was a single human operative, Supreme Counselor? Draz Kol asked, her voice carrying the melodic undertones that marked her as from the southern continent of the QR homeworld. Not some new technology, not a projection. The biometric scanners registered a living human entity, Vex Talon replied. All evidence suggests it was a single individual. Impossible, Grand Admiral Kurvash declared. No human possesses such capabilities. Their species is physically inferior to our own. Their technological development lags behind ours by at least a century. With respect, Grand Admiral Vex Talon said carefully, "What I witnessed defied all known parameters of human capability. Either they have developed technologies far beyond our intelligence assessments, or this individual represents something unprecedented." A communication officer approached Supreme Counselor Kol and whispered something. Her multiple eyes widened in alarm. "We are receiving a transmission," she announced, "from the Proyon system." The grand strategic display in the center of the chamber shifted to show a live feed from the QR observational fleet, stationed near Proyon. The system contained 11 planets, all uninhabitable 8 gas giants, and 3 frozen terrestrial worlds with toxic atmospheres. The feed showed the surface of Proyon 6, an icescape stretching to the horizon, temperatures hovering around negative 150 degrees Celsius atmosphere, primarily nitrogen and methane. No life could survive there unprotected. No structures existed on its surface. "Report," Grand Admiral Kurvash demanded. The fleet commander's voice came through tense with confusion. "Grand Admiral, we detected an energy signature on the planet's surface 30 minutes ago. No ship landed. No structure exists. But the signature matches. It matches the theoretical output of the quantum destabilizer." "Impossible," Kurvash repeated, but with less conviction. A new voice came through the communication system, a human voice, casual and almost friendly. "Hello there. Hope you don't mind me interrupting." The Imperial Chamber fell silent. "Who is this Supreme Counselor?" Kol demanded. "Identify yourself." "You can call me Jack," the voice replied. "I believe I borrowed something from you folks recently. Thought I'd show you what it can do." Vex Talon felt his blood run cold. The voice, it matched the few words the intruder had spoken during the breach of DRL-9. "I've solved your power supply problem," Jack continued conversationally. "Turns out the destabilizer doesn't need a massive external energy source. It just needs to be activated correctly. This is Supreme Counselor Draz Kol of the QR Imperium. You are addressing the highest authorities of our government. Surrender immediately or face annihilation." A light chuckle came through the speakers. "About that annihilation thing, watch your feed." On the strategic display, a small figure appeared on the icy landscape of Proyon 6, a human in what appeared to be standard fatigues, no environmental suit, holding a device roughly the size of a personal computer. "That's impossible," Zarn whispered beside Vex Talon. "No human could survive those conditions. The temperature alone would—" "Sending a clearer feed now," Jack's voice interrupted. The image zoomed in, showing the human's face clearly. It was him, the intruder, standing on a planet that should have killed him instantly, holding the stolen quantum destabilizer, smiling that same mildly amused smile. "Now I know what you're thinking," Jack said. "You're thinking this is some kind of trick. Maybe a hologram, maybe a remote-controlled android. So let me put those doubts to rest." The human pressed a sequence of buttons on the device. It began to glow with an unearthly blue light. "The destabilizer is keyed to my genetic signature now," Jack explained. "Only I can activate it. Only I can deactivate it. And right now, it's set to demonstrate what happens when you mess with Earth and her colonies." On the display, the icy surface around the human began to shimmer, as if viewed through intense heat. The effect spread outward in an expanding circle. Where it passed, the very structure of the planet seemed to unravel. Ice rock atmosphere all dissolving into their component particles. Then those particles themselves, breaking down further into a strange, luminous cloud. "By the first Empress," Grand Admiral Kurvash breathed. "It's destroying the atomic structure itself." The effect accelerated. Within minutes, half the planet had dissolved into the glowing particulate cloud. The human figure remained standing at the center of it all, apparently unaffected. "As you can see," Jack's voice continued calmly, "the destabilizer works rather well. Better than your scientists predicted, I'd imagine. No ship needed, no platform, no limits to where I can deploy it." Supreme Counselor Cole's voice shook as she responded. "What do you want?" "What do I want?" Jack sounded almost surprised by the question. "I want you to withdraw all forces from Earth Alliance territories immediately. I want reparations for the damages caused. I want a formal public apology for the attack on Riel 7. And I want assurances this aggression will never be repeated." "Or," Grand Admiral Kurvash demanded. "Or the next demonstration won't be on an uninhabited planet," Jack replied simply. "I think Terrace might be interesting. Or perhaps your homeworld. I haven't decided yet." The silence in the Imperial chamber was absolute. On the display, the disintegration of Proyon 6 continued. Nearly 80% of its mass had now been converted to the strange glowing cloud. "You have 24 hours to begin a complete withdrawal," Jack said. "I'll be watching." The transmission cut off abruptly. The strategic display continued to show the final dissolution of the planet. Within moments, nothing remained but the luminous cloud, which itself began to disperse into the vacuum of space. The QR observational fleet reported no ship departures, no energy signatures, no explanation for how the human had arrived or departed. The sensors failed to find any surviving planetary mass. The Supreme Council deliberated for less than an hour before issuing their decision unconditional withdrawal from all contested territories reparations, equivalent to 30 years of Riel mining production, and a public apology to be delivered by Grand Admiral Kurvash himself. Vex Talon was summoned to a private meeting with Supreme Counselor Cole following the decision. "Your new assignment," she said without preamble, handing him a data crystal. He reviewed the contents, his multiple eyes blinking in confusion. "Earth Alliance Cultural Attaché Counselor. I am a military commander, not a—" "You are what the Imperium requires you to be," she cut him off sharply. "You are the only senior officer who has encountered this, Jack. You will serve the Imperium by learning everything you can about the humans, their capabilities, their intentions, their weaknesses." Vex Talon understood what remained unspoken. This was simultaneously a punishment and a promotion. To his peers, he would appear disgraced, removed from military command, and relegated to diplomatic duties. Yet, he was being entrusted with perhaps the most critical assignment in the Imperium, understanding the threat that had forced their unprecedented surrender. "I serve as required counselor," he replied formally. "Good. You depart for Earth in 6 cycles. They've accepted your appointment." 6 cycles later, Vex Talon prepared for his departure in his private quarters. His military decorations had been stored away. His commander's insignia replaced with the silver circles of diplomatic service. His weapons surrendered as befitted his new role. He felt naked without them, vulnerable, just as the Imperium now was. His communication console chimed, indicating an incoming transmission on a secure channel. No visual audio only. He accepted it with caution. "Hello, Commander, or should I say attaché?" Vex Talon froze, that voice. "Jack." A light chuckle. "Good memory. Looking forward to your arrival on Earth." "How did you access this channel?" Vex Talon demanded. "This is a secure Imperium frequency." "Is it interesting?" Jack sounded genuinely amused. "I wanted to put your mind at ease about something. Humanity isn't interested in annihilating your species. We could have done that already if we wanted to." "Then what do you want?" "Peace," Jack replied simply. "On our terms certainly, but peace nonetheless. Your people have some remarkable achievements. It would be a shame to lose them over something as trivial as mining rights." Vex Talon struggled to reconcile this casual conversation with the being who had single-handedly forced the Imperium to its knees. "What are you?" Another chuckle. "Just a human attaché, nothing more. No human could do what you did. No human could survive in vacuum. No human could override our security systems or resist our toxins. And yet here we are." A pause. "You'll learn a lot during your time on Earth. I recommend keeping an open mind. Your Imperium has misconceptions about us." "Will I meet you?" Vex Talon asked. "Perhaps. But you've already met me, haven't you? I was the one who walked into your fortress. The one you couldn't keep out." The transmission ended, leaving Vex Talon alone with his thoughts. He moved to the small cabinet where he kept a flask of fermented nectar from his homeworld. Pouring a measure into a crystal glass, he raised it in a mock toast. To cultural exchange, he murmured uncertain whether his species would survive it. As he drank, he could almost hear that human voice again, with its tone of mild amusement. It would haunt him, he suspected, for a very long time to come. 2 years into his posting on Earth, Attaché Vex Talon had developed a reputation among the diplomatic corps as being unusually adaptable for a QR official. He had mastered several human languages beyond the standard translation protocols, sampled their diverse cuisines despite his different biochemistry, and even attended cultural events ranging from symphony performances to sporting competitions. His official residence in Geneva, a modest structure by Imperium standards, but considered luxurious by many humans, had become a hub for unofficial discussions between Earth Alliance officials and representatives of various QR factions. While the formal peace negotiations continued in the grand halls of the United Nations complex, much of the actual progress occurred during Vex Talon's carefully orchestrated dinner parties. Tonight, however, he sat alone in his study reviewing the latest intelligence reports from the Imperium. The QR government remained deeply divided over their policy toward humans. The militarists, led by Grand Admiral Kurvash, advocated for a massive buildup of forces, while maintaining the peace agreement, preparing for a future confrontation once they had developed countermeasures to the quantum destabilizer and whatever other technologies the mysterious Jack represented. The progressives, increasingly vocal under Supreme Counselor Cole's protection, argued for genuine cooperation and cultural exchange, suggesting that the Imperium had fundamentally misunderstood humanity's capabilities and intentions for centuries. Vex Talon found himself increasingly sympathetic to the latter position, though he would never admit as much in his official communications. 2 years of observation had convinced him that humans possessed qualities the Imperium had systematically underestimated: adaptability, creativity, and an almost incomprehensible diversity of thought and approach. Where QR society valued uniformity and hierarchy, humans thrived on difference and disruption. Where the Imperium built massive standardized war machines, humans created countless innovations at the individual or small group level. Their decentralized approach to everything from governance to technological development made them simultaneously more chaotic and more resilient than QR intelligence had ever acknowledged. A soft chime interrupted his musings. Someone at the door, unexpected at this late hour. Identify, he instructed the security system. Jack, came the reply through the intercom. Vex Talon sat perfectly still for several heartbeats. In 2 years, despite countless inquiries through official and unofficial channels, he had never managed to locate the human who had single-handedly changed the course of interstellar relations. Mentions of anyone named Jack with unusual abilities were met with blank stares or careful deflections by human officials. Earth Alliance military records showed hundreds of personnel with that name, but none matched the face burned into Vex Talon's memory. Enter, he finally instructed the system, overriding the standard security protocols. The door slid open to reveal a human figure, the same unremarkable features, the same casual posture, the same mild expression that had haunted Vex Talon's dreams for 2 years. Evening attaché, Jack said, stepping into the study without waiting for further invitation. Hope I'm not interrupting anything important. Vex Talon stood, his multiple hearts accelerating. You're real. Jack raised an eyebrow. Did you think I wasn't? After 2 years of searching, I began to wonder if you were a collective operation, a construct, a shared hallucination. Vex Talon gestured to a chair. Please sit. Jack took the offered seat, glancing around the study, with apparent interest at the mixture of QR artifacts and human art that Vex Talon had collected. Nice place. Very cross-cultural. Why now? Vex Talon asked, resuming his own seat. Why show yourself after 2 years? Because you've earned it, Jack replied simply. You've done good work here, attaché. Better than anyone expected, including your own government. Vex Talon felt a complex mixture of emotions: pride at the recognition, wariness at its source, and the ever-present confusion that this ordinary-looking human inspired. My duty is to the Imperium. Of course, Jack agreed easily. But you've gone beyond duty. You've begun to understand us. That makes you valuable and potentially dangerous to certain factions back home. The implication was clear. Vex Talon's more nuanced reports on human culture and capabilities had not been universally welcomed. Is that why you're here, to warn me? Jack smiled. Partly, but also to offer you something. A demonstration, if you will. Not like the last one. I'm listening. The peace conference next month in Oslo. The militarist faction in your government is planning to scuttle it, specifically Admiral Vrex and Security Minister Kohl. They've arranged for evidence of human violations of the treaty to be presented. Fabricated evidence, but convincing. Vex Talon kept his expression neutral, though inwardly he was shocked. This was highly classified information that he himself had learned only days ago through his most secure channels. How could you possibly know this? The same way I walked into your fortress. The same way I activated the destabilizer. The same way I'm sitting here now, having bypassed all your current security measures without triggering a single alarm. Jack leaned forward slightly. It's not technology, attaché. At least not in the way you understand it. Then what is it? Something your species doesn't have. Something you've never detected because you've never known to look for it. Jack tapped his temple. Call it an additional sense. A different way of perceiving and interacting with reality. Vex Talon's scientific mind immediately began cataloging possibilities: psionic abilities, quantum consciousness, multidimensional perception, all theoretical concepts that Imperium researchers had dismissed as impossible or impractical. Some of us have it, Jack continued. Not all, not even most, but enough. We've kept it hidden because, well, people tend to fear what they don't understand. Are you saying humans are psychic? Vex Talon asked bluntly. Jack laughed. That's an oversimplification, but not entirely wrong. We don't read minds exactly. It's more like we can sense the patterns of information, access them, sometimes influence them. Information. What information? All information. The data in your security systems. The structure of a neurotoxin molecule. The connection between a particle barrier and its control mechanism. Jack gestured expansively. Even the information that makes up atomic structure itself. It's all patterns, attaché. And some of us can see and manipulate those patterns. Vex Talon sat back, the implications thundering through his mind. If true, this would explain everything: the impossible breach, the immunity to weapons and toxins, the ability to operate the quantum destabilizer without a power source, the apparent teleportation. "Why tell me this?" he asked finally. "Because the peace is fragile," Jack replied, his expression growing serious. "Because Admiral Vrex and his allies need to be stopped before they reignite a war your people cannot win. And because you're in a position to stop them without revealing what I've just told you." "You want me to be your agent?" "I want you to be an advocate for the truth," Jack corrected. "Your people aren't ready to know about us, about what some of us can do. But they are ready to build a lasting peace based on mutual respect and cooperation. You've seen enough of humanity now to know we're not the simplistic inferior species your education taught you we were." Vex Talon couldn't deny it. His time on Earth had systematically dismantled centuries of imperial propaganda about humans. "The evidence they plan to present," Jack continued, "it contradicts atmospheric testing data from your own science vessel, the Kelmar. Data that was suppressed but still exists in the archives. Find it. Present it at the conference. Discredit Vrex before he can damage the peace process." "And if I refuse?" Jack's expression didn't change, but something in the air seemed to shift, a subtle pressure that made Vex Talon's skin prickle. "I demonstrated what I'm capable of on Proyon 6. I would prefer not to make similar demonstrations in populated systems." The threat was delivered without heat, without emphasis, and was all the more terrifying for its casual certainty. "I understand," Vex Talon said quietly. "I hope you do," Jack stood. "For what it's worth, I believe you'll make the right choice, not because you fear what I might do, but because you've come to value what peace could mean for both our peoples." As Jack moved toward the door, Vex Talon called after him. "Will I see you again?" Jack paused, that familiar, mildly amused expression returning. "Perhaps. But remember, attaché, just because you don't see me doesn't mean I'm not there." After Jack departed, Vex Talon remained in his study for hours, staring at nothing, his mind racing through implications and possibilities. Finally, he activated his most secure channel and began composing a message to Supreme Counselor Cole. Not about Jack, or the abilities he'd claimed that information was too dangerous, too destabilizing, but about the Kelmar data and its potential to prevent a catastrophic diplomatic incident. As he worked through the night, he occasionally felt that prickling sensation on his skin again, as if someone were watching. Looking up, he found only shadows. "Just because you don't see me," he murmured to the empty room, "doesn't mean I'm not there." 6 months later, Vex Talon stood on the observation deck of the Earth Alliance space station Harmony, watching as the diplomatic shuttle carrying Admiral Vrex departed for QR space. The Oslo conference had been a triumph for the peace process, thanks largely to the Kelmar data that Vex Talon had discovered, just in time to discredit Vrex's fabricated evidence. Supreme Counselor Cole had used the incident to consolidate her power, pushing through reforms that reduced the military's influence in Imperium governance and expanded cultural and scientific exchanges with humanity. Admiral Vrex had been recalled in disgrace. Security Minister Cole had resigned rather than face investigation. And Vex Talon, once a dedicated military commander, now something far more complex, had been formally recognized by both governments for his contributions to interstellar peace. "Quite a view, isn't it?" Vex Talon didn't need to turn to recognize Jack's voice. "You're becoming predictable." A soft chuckle. "Am I?" Appearing at significant moments, making cryptic statements, vanishing without explanation, Vex Talon finally turned to face the human. One might almost call it theatrical. Jack smiled, leaning against the railing beside him. Below them, Earth rotated slowly, a blue-white jewel against the blackness of space. Everyone needs a hobby. They stood in companionable silence for a moment, an alien and a human with powers beyond comprehension, watching the cradle of humanity spin. There are more like you, Vex Talon said finally. It wasn't a question. Yes. How many? Jack shrugged. Enough. Not a majority by any means. Maybe one in several million with meaningful abilities. Fewer with the level of control I have. And the Imperium never detected this. Your science looks for technological solutions, weapons, devices, energy signatures. Jack tapped his temple again. You never thought to look for abilities housed entirely within a living mind. Until you decided to reveal yourselves by walking into our most secure facility. A calculated risk, Jack admitted. We needed to end the war quickly before it escalated to something neither side could recover from. The demonstration was regrettable but necessary. Vex Talon considered this. What happens now? Now, Jack gestured toward Earth. Now we build something better than war. Your people have remarkable achievements, attaché. Technologies, art, philosophies that complement our own. There's no reason our species can't coexist and even thrive together. Except for the fact that some of your kind can destroy planets with a thought. Jack's expression grew serious. Power always exists regardless of who wields it. The question is whether it's used for creation or destruction. Philosophy from a weapon of mass destruction, Vex Talon observed dryly. I prefer to think of myself as a deterrent, Jack replied. One that hopefully never needs to be used again. Another silence fell between them, less comfortable than before. Your assignment here is coming to an end, Jack said eventually. The Imperium is recalling you for a new posting. Vex Talon nodded. Supreme Council Advisory Committee. I'll be helping shape policy toward humanity for the next generation. A good choice. You understand us better than most. Not entirely, Vex Talon admitted. I still don't understand why you're telling me these things. Why reveal your abilities to me at all? Jack turned fully to face him, the mild amusement fading from his expression, replaced by something more solemn. Because someone needed to know. Someone with influence who could guide your people toward cooperation rather than fear. Someone who would understand that if we wanted to destroy the Imperium, we would have done so already. And you chose me because you watched me walk into your fortress, steal your most powerful weapon, and demonstrate it on an uninhabitable planet. And instead of retreating into hatred or fear, you adapted. You learned. You grew. Jack smiled slightly. That's rare, attaché. Rarer than my abilities, perhaps. Vex Talon wasn't sure how to respond to that. Before he could formulate a reply, Jack pushed away from the railing. I should go, but I'll be watching your work with interest. Jack, Vex Talon, called as the human turned to leave. One last question. Is that even your real name? The human paused, that familiar expression of mild amusement returning. Does it matter? Without waiting for an answer, Jack walked away down the curved corridor of the observation deck. Vex Talon watched until the human turned a corner and disappeared from view. Turning back to the viewport, he gazed down at Earth, trying to reconcile everything he had learned. Somewhere on that blue world lived beings with the power to unravel reality itself, walking undetected among their fellows. The implications were simultaneously terrifying and fascinating. His communication device chimed, indicating a message from the Imperium Diplomatic Corps, final departure instructions for his return journey. Soon, he would be back among his own kind, helping to forge a new relationship with humanity based on respect rather than conquest. As he contemplated this future, he felt that now familiar prickling sensation across his skin. Looking up, he found only his reflection in the viewport glass. Just because I don't see you, he murmured, doesn't mean you're not there. And somewhere, he was certain Jack was listening. 10 years after the Oslo conference, Vex Talon sat in the garden of his estate on the QR homeworld, watching the triple sunset paint the sky in shades of purple and gold. His position on the Supreme Council Advisory Committee had evolved into full council membership 3 years earlier, making him one of the 12 most powerful individuals in the Imperium. Under his guidance, along with Supreme Counselor Cole's progressive faction, relations with humanity had transformed from wary peace to genuine cooperation. Joint scientific ventures, cultural exchanges, and even limited military coordination against mutual threats had become commonplace. The mining rights that had once triggered war were now managed by a joint corporation with equal ownership and profit sharing. Not everyone approved, of course. The militarist faction, though diminished, still advocated for caution and preparation. They pointed to humanity's rapid expansion, their unpredictable governance structures, their chaotic approach to technological development. In guarded committee rooms, they sometimes whispered about the unconfirmed reports from the Proyon incident, rumors of a human with impossible abilities. Vex Talon never confirmed these rumors, never spoke of Jack except in one highly classified report, accessible only to Supreme Counselor Cole herself. Never revealed what he knew about the true nature of humanity's greatest advantage. Instead, he worked diligently to build structures of cooperation that would make conflict unthinkable for both species. Trade dependencies, shared research, cultural integration, the slow, careful work of turning former enemies into essential partners. A rustle in the ornamental foliage drew his attention. "You're getting sloppy," he remarked without turning. "I detected your approach from 20 meters away." "Or perhaps I wanted you to," Jack replied, emerging from the garden path. The human looked exactly the same as when Vex Talon had first seen him walking through Gate 7 at DRL 9 15 years earlier. No signs of aging. No changes to that mild, slightly amused expression. 15 years without a visit, and now you appear in my private garden on the QR homeworld, Vex Talon observed. "Should I be concerned?" Jack took a seat on the stone bench beside him. "Not concerned, perhaps curious." "About?" "Project Sentinel," Jack said the words casually, but they sent a jolt through Vex Talon's system. Project Sentinel was the Imperium's most classified initiative, a network of advanced sensors being deployed throughout QR space, designed to detect and neutralize threats before they materialized. Officially, it was described as an early warning system against cosmic phenomena and potential invasive species from the galactic core. Unofficially, as Vex Talon well knew, it was an attempt to detect and potentially counter humans with abilities like Jack's. "I'm not familiar with that designation," Vex Talon lied smoothly. Jack smiled. "Really, Counselor? After all this time, you still think you can deceive me?" Vex Talon sighed. "How did you learn about it?" "The same way I learn about everything." Jack tapped his temple in that now familiar gesture. "The question isn't how I know, but what I intend to do about it." A cold weight settled in Vex Talon's multiple stomachs. "And what do you intend?" "Nothing," Jack replied simply. "Absolutely nothing." Vex Talon blinked his four eyes in sequence, a sign of confusion in QR body language. "Nothing. Your scientists are pursuing knowledge, trying to understand something they've glimpsed but cannot yet comprehend. That's not a threat to us, it's a natural progression." Jack gestured toward the sky, where the first stars were becoming visible as the last sun set. "Besides, Project Sentinel won't work. Not as currently designed. Because they're looking for the wrong markers, the wrong patterns." Jack turned to face him directly. "But that's not really why I'm here, Counselor." "Then why are you here after 15 years of silence?" "To warn you. Not about humans this time, but about something else. Something approaching from beyond the rim of the galaxy." Vex Talon felt his heart accelerate. "What do you mean?" "We've sensed disturbances. Patterns that don't match any known species or natural phenomena. Something vast and ancient moving toward populated space." Jack's expression was entirely serious now, the mild amusement completely absent. "Whatever it is, it makes the conflict between our peoples look like a children's game. When, not for decades, perhaps centuries, but it's coming." Jack stood. "When it arrives, humanity and the Imperium will need to stand together. All our resources, All our unique abilities combined against a common threat. Vex Talon rose as well, his mind racing with implications. Why tell me this now? Because foundations matter, counselor. The work you're doing now, building trust, creating connections between our species, may ultimately determine whether we face this threat united or divided. Jack placed a hand briefly on Vex Talon's shoulder. Keep building. Whatever resistance you face, whatever setbacks occur, keep building. Before Vex Talon could respond, Jack turned and walked back toward the garden path. This time, though, the human stopped and looked back. One more thing, counselor. Project Sentinel has detected something interesting near the Cygnus arm. Your scientists haven't recognized its significance yet, but they will. When they do, remember this conversation. With that cryptic statement, Jack disappeared into the gathering darkness of the garden. Vex Talon remained standing, watching the space where the human had been wondering, as he always did, whether Jack had truly departed or merely become undetectable again. Later that night in his secure study, Vex Talon accessed the most recent reports from Project Sentinel. Buried in the appendices, he found an anomalous reading from a sensor array near the Cygnus arm. A pattern that the scientists had flagged as potentially significant, but currently unclassifiable. He stared at the data, trying to see what Jack had seen, to understand what message he was meant to extract from these technical readings. Nothing obvious presented itself. But as he prepared to sign off, a new notification appeared, a message from Supreme Counselor Cole, marked urgent. Representatives of 57 Earth Alliance worlds have requested a summit to discuss a joint deep space exploration initiative, she wrote. They're proposing a massive collaborative effort to investigate anomalous readings near the Cygnus arm. Initial discussions suggest they're willing to share technologies previously considered classified to support this initiative. Vex Talon felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature in his study. They knew. Somehow they had detected the same phenomenon that Project Sentinel had found. Or perhaps a part of him whispered they had always known it was coming. Perhaps beings like Jack, with their ability to perceive patterns beyond normal understanding, had sensed this approaching threat long before conventional technologies could detect it. He composed a careful reply to Supreme Counselor Cole, endorsing full participation in the proposed summit and suggesting expanded resource allocation for joint ventures with humanity. As he sent the message, he found himself remembering Jack's words from their first real conversation 15 years earlier. Just because you don't see me doesn't mean I'm not there. The same perhaps could be said for whatever was approaching from beyond the galactic rim. Unseen but present. Unknown but real. And when it finally revealed itself, the Imperium would need allies like humanity, and humans like Jack, more than they had ever needed anything before. In his garden the next morning, Vex Talon stood watching the triple sunrise, feeling the weight of responsibility settling across his shoulders. He had always served the Imperium, from his days as a military commander to his current role as counselor. But now, perhaps he served something larger, the future of two species united against a threat neither fully understood. Just because I don't see you, he said aloud to the empty garden, doesn't mean you're not there. And somewhere, he was certain Jack was listening.